You're welcome back to the news right here, and on our conversation tonight, we'll speak about President Tinubu appointing or nominating rather Professor Joash Ojo as the Inec chairman. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria and, of course, the new chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Inec, succeeding Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, whose term ended in October, is supposed to end in October 2025. The nomination is confirmed by the National Council of State and awaits Senate approval. Now, these are some key points about Professor Amupitan, who's from the North Central. He's from Kogi State and the first nominee from this zone for Inec chair. And of course, he's a professor of law at the University of Jos, where he also serves as Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration, and has been called to bar since 1988 and became a senior advocate of Nigeria in 2014. And his nomination emphasizes both regional inclusion and professional merit. If confirmed by the Senate, he would lead Inec into a new era of electoral reforms and administration. To join me now and speak on this is the news manager, Mr. Alex Ogbodo. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you. Amazing grace.
So the last line here, leading Inec into a new era of electoral reforms and administration. There's been a lot of talk, and little doings when it comes to Inec, and it just seems like people have given up. Lots of people say, well, they'll never vote. And what can possibly Professor Amupitan do? Because we saw Professor Mahmoud, talk about the beavers, the IREV, and all of that. We still had the technical glitch. What can he do, really?
There's a saying in my place, and I will explain that. You would not perform the duty that is due for a child to perform. In due time, the child will perform that duty. So it is Amupitan's era. We'll have to wait and see. Again, let's not be faster than our shadows here. He's a new kid on the block. All his life he's been in the academia. Since 1989, he's been in the university, teaching law, doing everything. Evidence law. He's versed in evidence law. And he's been a senior advocate of Nigeria since 2014. So if you look at him, he's been all about law practice. In fact, past heads of the Inec, they've always come from the academia. If you want to take your mind back to the early 90s, Professor Humphrey Mosu came from the academia, UNN. Even the person he succeeded also was known academic. So that pattern has continued. But again, you also have to look at the fact that the role of the Inec chair has been so politicized, especially from the outcome of the last election. Everyone believed that that election could have been better handled, especially the presidential election. So when you, on the weight of that, you are looking at it, okay, the man is from Kogi State, but he bears a Yoruba name. So everybody said, all right, he appointed somebody that is from his tribe. Let me say this. It doesn't matter now where the Inec chairman is from. If the president appoints you, he will call the shots. Till tomorrow, if the laws would not change about how Inec will run, if the Inec chair, according to the law, will have to be appointed by the president, then the president will dictate the tune because he is the person that pays the piper. That's how it is.
So technically speaking, because I was coming to that question saying, why should we still have that law? That law should be made very obsolete by now, where the president determines who the Inec chair should be. But it does seem like maybe the average Nigerians would say, well, there's no hope if we still have presidents appointing who should man the elections for him. Then it's like, well, it boils down to nothing at the end of the day.
Because that was, a lot of people criticized former President Goodluck Jonathan for not firing Atahiru Jega.
Right.
But then, why should he fire the man? He conducted an election and President Jonathan lost the election. It shouldn't be a problem. What it showed is that it is possible for an incumbent president to lose election.
Now the question is, did he really lose that election? We can always say this in the media, but we know what happens. This is Nigeria.
No. At the end of the day, he conceded. There was no contest. He didn't go to court over the thing. So till tomorrow, the record is that he lost the election. In fact, with the results that were already counted, he was losing by a big margin. So it's not a question of whether he would lose. He knew he would lose. And with everything, with all the security information available to him, Nigeria would have really won. In fact, the palpable fear was so thick in the country at that time. People were watching on their TV and they held their breath as to what will happen next after the Orubebe drama.
Right.
And then he made that call and the tension doused. Back to the issue of who becomes... Electoral reforms in Nigeria has become a touchy issue. If you look at what we've been through. Since 1999, you have alteration of the Constitution. It's not been easy. I don't know whether there's any incumbent president that will deliberately alter the Constitution in a way that it will hurt him electorally. So if you hand the power to appoint Inec chair to another person as a sitting president, you are pretty much saying that, okay, whatever happens, let other people determine my fate.
But that's what it should be.
Well, it's not so in the country. And if you look at the National Assembly, it doesn't look like there will be any major reforms electorally.
Because they're already thinking on your mandate we shall stand. So
I
that's
would like
already
to be
like
proven
a rubber
wrong by
stamp.
this. The current National Assembly will not make any major reforms. You will not see, the only reforms you will see will be reforms that will help them consolidate power. Those of them in the National Assembly might, alter the Constitution to give them better advantage.
Right.
But then at the end of the day, all elections are local. But then the results are written somewhere else.
It's a long journey there. So, but I'm going to have to take this conversation away. I know you're not expecting this question here. Let's talk about this whole call, especially by Showore, saying that the president should at least release Nnamdi Kanu and urging the governors of the Southeast, to take the bold step to go to Aso Villa, maybe to a peaceful protest. I don't know how that's going to be possible, but do you think that it's high time we Nigerians or the Nigerian president left Nnamdi Kanu, considering his health as well?
I mean, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. If Boko Haram terrorists who have killed people, known on record to have killed hundreds and even thousands of people, are even brought back and, unquote, re-radicalized, or de-radicalized, that's the word. They de-radicalize them and bring them into the Nigerian army, then Nnamdi Kanu should be let go. Except you're telling me there are different laws for the same people in the country. Because if you look at it, we've seen more bloodshed from Boko Haram terrorists than we've seen from whatever it is they say IPOB is doing around here. If you place it on the pedestal, whatever it is Nnamdi Kanu has done is like scratching the surface. So the question is, why is Nnamdi Kanu's case so serious on the table of the federal government, but then issues around Boko Haram are swept under the carpet? In fact, it is treated as if it's nothing.
And my question is, why are the Southeast governors not making so much noise? The Southeast governors will not make noise, because how many of them, except for Hope Uzodinma, who's already won a second term, every other person in the value chain will want a second term. The Anambra State governor will be going for his second term election in November. Peter Mba, Francis Nwifuru, Alex Oti will be going for their second term election in 2027. Any misplaced utterance at this time can cost you dearly in 2027. So I guess that what Showore is doing is trying to increase the calls from outside the Southeast, which that's the component of the calls we haven't seen recently, because most of the calls have been from Ohaneze, PG. In Oka during the World Igbo Day, he made the call that they should release Nnamdi Kanu. That holding Nnamdi Kanu looks like they are holding the whole of Ndibo there. But at the end of the day, you have to look at it. They've tried and they've elongated his stay. 4 years, he's been there. I mean, even if Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is in excellent health, he will be very depressed. Right.
That's what it is. And I'm not sure there's any man who will be in detention for 4 years and his health will not deteriorate.
He was there for Buhari's tenure,
yeah,
and then still there.
So if you put it on that, I mean, you wouldn't know whether there were a few things he was dealing with health-wise. But being able to move around helps you to stay healthier. It does a lot for you. Going out and filling your lungs with fresh air, he doesn't have that privilege anymore. So that will impact on his health negatively. And all his doctors, they've examined him. They say it's not looking good for him. The Nigerian Medical Association, they've also examined him and say it's not also looking good. He has low potassium and organ this and that. So they really need to let him go.
So do you think that President Tinubu is holding him as a political tool, some sort of way?
It looks like, yes. I mean, but I can understand also why the president will not be fast in releasing Nnamdi Kanu.
Why?
And let's put it on the table. The touchy issue of Biafra. It looks like in Nigeria, it looks like only the Southeast have actually tried to secede from the country. And they held it down for 30 months.
But there's this other man in the Yoruba nation calling for secession as well.
No other part of Nigeria has successfully pulled it off. Biafra, 1967 to 1970, were fighting to protect the Biafra land. No other part of Nigeria has dared. So anytime anybody mentions Biafra here, it sends shivers. You can understand that. I mean, if you're a president, you don't want to preside over a broken country. So on that aspect, you know that the presidents are in a bit of dilemma whether to let him go. Because there's also another issue. If you let Nnamdi Kanu go, he will go back to saying those things. Because the Nnamdi Kanu you see in court, it doesn't look like the leopard will not lose his spots. That's right. What it is.
Right. We'll have to stop the conversation here, but we would not definitely stop talking about how the center, can lose some of its powers and give some, powers to the regions as well, so that the regions can have more ways to sort their issues out. Because I think that the region, Southeast region, they have all it takes to do all that they can do for themselves. I mean, we have the power, we have infrastructure, we have men as well that can do all of this, hoping that the federal government releases Nnamdi Kanu. Thank you so much for joining in tonight, Mr. Alex. Thank you.